We got four.
Oh, there we go. Hello, welcome everyone. It is March 17th, 2026. That means it is St. Patrick's Day. Unfortunately, only a couple of us have green on today, but that's okay. We will make do. Please let the record reflect that we have Commissioners Brooks and Waldriff online, and in the conference room, we have Commissioners French and Kearns. We're going to kick off today with our legislative wrap up from Mike Burgess, live from Olympia. How did everything go, Mike?
Uh, we're done. I'll say that part, commissioners. We finished last Thursday. Pretty mad dash to the end. As expected, there was some rumors that we might end up going a day or two of special session, or probably one day, especially after the income tax, millionaires tax debate took 25 hours. I think it ended up going. That's a record here in Washington. But inevitably, they did end up wrapping things up around, oh, I want to say it ended up being 8 or 9 o'clock last Thursday night. Um, just want to close up some loose ends with you. There's not a lot new to tell you other than to finish up on some issues that we talked about and what the outcome was throughout the session. Um, Couple policy bills to mention. The first being the waste to energy bill. It did make it to the governor. And if that is something that you all would like to send a letter of support for as the governor deliberates the bill, no indications to think there's an issue with the governor signing it, but it would be the normal course if it's something that we specifically supported, which we did. Um, the board could send a letter or individual commissioners could. I think Commissioner Jordan's testimony would actually be a really good template for crafting into a letter. I see he's not there. But if there's a way to get a hold of the comments he made, and as I mentioned, either he could send it in or you as a board could to the governor's office, and I can help your staff navigate the way to do that. There's a way to do it through the governor's website where you can attach a Word document or any document for that matter, and the governor's office would get the letter. So that's something for you all to contemplate there. And that we can come back to that if you'd like. But then the one other one that was in play until the very end, one of the last bills the legislature adopted was a bill that dealt with data centers, and it was the one that dealt with the tax issue. So not there was the other one that so there's kind of the Spokane amendment that was floating around out there that came from a bill that um, Representative Ormsby introduced. That bill, the Ormsby bill, was amended into House Bill 2515. And that bill dealt with, I guess I'd call it data center energy use. That bill did not move, but there was another bill, or excuse me, that bill didn't move out of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, but there was another bill that dealt with data center tax on up on, I guess I would call it almost remodels, but when you would update the equipment, there was a sales tax break when you buy new servers and cables and all the racks, that everything's associated with what a data center would have. That was a governor request bill that the legislature passed to repeal that tax. But the Spokane Amendment, as I've kind of started to call it, was an option. It was sitting on the bar when the bill was being considered on the floor, but the amendment was withdrawn. So ultimately, that issue did not happen. The Spokane kind of amendment to that, or the originally what I guess the Ormsby bill, that did not happen. But it was in play until the end, but again was withdrawn. So any questions on those two issues before I move to the next few? Okay.
Do we know do
Yeah.
we know why that amendment was withdrawn? I it seemed like that the concept of that amendment or that original bill had support from some pretty
It,
major players.
it did, Commissioner, but I guess I'd speculate. This is me speculating. I mean, I haven't talked to anyone as to why, but in some ways you could argue it runs contrary to what the bill was doing. So the bill that the final amendment was to remove a tax break. The Spokane fix authorizes a tax break, though I think of it as the way I was explaining to people in simplistic forms was think of the Spokane Amendment as new construction as opposed to the bill removing tax breaks for remodels, right? So, I mean, that's a gross oversimplification, but that's about right in terms of what those things did. And so I just think it was probably complicating and sent counter messages and probably just frankly probably didn't have enough support inside the majority caucus. But that's purely my speculation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your definition is accurate. The attorneys contemplating the bills before action said that the amendment was contrary to the underlying bill, because the underlying bill took away the tax break and our amendment added a tax break, and they said they were contrary. So that's
Right.
why they pulled it.
Yep. Um, on to the next one, the ongoing millionaires tax, income tax bill that probably that did in fact dominate the session, sucked up all the oxygen in the room once it was introduced and the way it was debated and the way it moved through the process. It was impactful to you because there's a few things we discussed in that bill. When the bill left the Senate floor, there was an amendment hung to it that removed a number of different sales tax provisions that were adopted in Senate Bill 5814 last year. So 5814 was the broad bill that increased a lot of different sales tax on live presentations, security services, different advertising, digital advertising, and all those types of things. There was a bill or an amendment again to the bill when it left the Senate floor that removed a handful of those, so not all of them, but a handful of those that will result in a net loss to local government sales tax revenue in as much as you get your local portion. The other part of that bill, when it was first introduced, dealt with public defense. And the original version, I think, had 7% to public defense, and then maybe it was 5, and then it moved up to 7. Counties, Wasac was advocating for 10. That was in the bill. I think the 7% was in the bill when it moved over to the House, but that provision was ultimately removed. So there is no funding, dedicated funding for public defense in the millionaire's tax. Having said that, though, one of the things that they did in the budget was state the intent to do kind of a county mitigation fund for the impacts of the millionaire's tax, repealing the sales tax. A statement that there is an intention to create this fund and appropriate dollars into it, but that didn't happen in the budget, and nor would it, because this isn't the budget where you would have those dollars appropriated. But so that was, in some ways, I guess, the promise that this is something that will happen in the future. So just wanted to make you aware that that's the final version of what happened in the millionaire's tax. Lots of speculation as to what's going to happen with that. I think you can imagine there will be a court challenge. And then there is probably the will by some to try to get it on the ballot. Conflicting reports, though, of which ballot they'd go for, whether it would be the 26 or the 27 ballot. There's probably, different political implications to using one or the other. But just know that this isn't over with by any means. And I just think it's got a ways to go. But those are the local impacts in terms of some of those sales tax were removed in that bill. And the public defense funding was not in it, the final version. Any questions on that?
Yeah, a little bit more detail on that. King County was projecting that they were going to lose $50 million in sales tax revenue per year. And they put a hard press on the legislature to try and do no harm. And that's how that proviso got added, was try and make the counties whole. But they've got not only the counties but the cities, and combined, the last estimate I heard was close to $500 million, and the legislature doesn't know where they're going to get it. So I'm not overly optimistic that they're going to do anything to make us whole, other than maybe reclassifying some of the other funds they were going to give us to this. But and that's what they did with the gas tax reimbursement, $110 million. They wanted to reclassify that as local road program and get credit for funding local program, but not reimbursing us for the money that was misallocated in the gas tax.
So,
Smoke and mirrors.
and so it went from 5% was the first sort of carrot
Yeah.
that we
and
get
7,
from PD, then 7, and then to 0.
0.
So,
And it's worse than 0. It's actually negative because of the sales tax loss.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yeah, and there was a great article in the Wall Street Journal that was an opinion piece on Washington State's tax, calling it a con. So if you haven't seen it, I would recommend that you take a look at it because it's interesting what they're doing to the people of the state of Washington.
Okay, the next item there, Commissioner Walter, if you in particular had asked about this a lot, this deals with the public health, and when the different kind of pots of money. I just want to tell you that that was addressed. It was addressed in House Bill 20, I want to say it was 2765. It was a bill that had a title that dealt with different accounts. And so, just closing the loop, that issue, it wasn't addressed in a tobacco tax bill. It was addressed in this other one. But to my knowledge, that was taken care of, and that, I spoke with the folks that work public health directly and let me know that's what happened. So I want to close the loop on that for you. You might have already heard that, but just want to make sure you knew that. And then the last,
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is there was the loss of funds from that tobacco vapor tax account, and they weren't able to replenish those dollars. So there is going to be a $21 million cut for starting July 1. So yeah, it's not, I mean, it could have been worse, I guess.
Yeah, so I should have been clear, Commissioner.
But-
I guess what I meant is the accounts issue was taken care of, but you're right, there's the revenue issue too.
So as I understand it right now, there's a negative for this first year of the biennium that they're potentially having to claw back payments to local health districts. It depends. It may be that some local health districts haven't spent all the money or won't. But so they're trying to figure that out before June 30th of this year. And then they're going to have to get all the local health districts together to figure out the cut between July 1 of this year till next year. So yay. But I mean, it sounds like into the future, yes, it will be fixed, but this year is going to be rough. Yeah.
And then the last items attached to this, to when I sent the agenda, and I think commissioners, I can get you these lists directly too. In fact, when we're done here, I'll just email them to you directly. But it's just the final list of transportation projects and capital budget projects within Spokane County. There's a website, one of the state websites, where you can consolidate into either legislative district or county. So I just chose county. And share with you what was there. This one looks like that's the community, or that is the capital list. And you'll see R773 there, whatever, the fourth or fifth line down there. But then this just gives you a flavor of the other things that were funded in the capital budget in the county. And then, you'll see a similar one for transportation, but rather than you trying to digest all these right now, I'll just email them to you so you have them. But it's what happened. Unfortunately, on the transportation side, there was a local project, the Thorpe project, got funding when it left the Senate floor. But when negotiations happened and
Can you go back to
the
that?
budgets were consolidated, it was removed. And no local kind of, I'd call them the one-offs, as opposed to the statewide projects got funding. That's just what the legislature did because there wasn't a new round of transportation funding this year.
So Mike, on the screen that Ron has up, under water quality projects,
Yeah.
you got 7.5 million. And then right under it, you've got a negative 7.5. Did they defund that?
No, sir. I think what it was it's a carry forward.
Okay,
I saw that too, and I assumed it was carry forward.
I think the explanation I got, and Commissioner, I'll double check, was it was a carry forward because that would imply to me that the 7.5 wasn't spent after last round of appropriation, so they just are reappropriating it.
yeah, I mean, we're just now finally getting the contract resolved with them, but we
Right.
waited, we waited almost 9 months for the contract.
Right, but this is common in the budget the way they account for it.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So Mike,
Mhm.
if I can ask, so on that, I mean, there's several that are large dollar amounts,
Mhm.
and I thought we were kind of told that in the capital budget that, like getting more than $1 million was pretty unheard of. So,
Well, remember though, Commissioner, a lot of these are different pots of money. So like the 25 million for the community technical college, that's, some of these come out of different pots of money. When I referred to
okay,
projects being $1 million or under, those are for the community projects. So obviously that behavioral health facility got $1.5 million. Again, that's not uncommon, but when we're looking at doing these things, it's in terms of what's doable, given the size of the budget. So the housing projects, they're kind of in the middle. That's a different pot of money. Those regional needs, those were probably out of a different health pot of money. So when we reference that, I was talking about community projects, which
Okay.
is does that make sense?
yeah, no, thank you.
Yep. So that's what I have for you today. I'll close the loop, Commissioner French, on that the PFAS, but I'm pretty sure I'm right there. It's just a reappropriation, and here's your list of your transportation projects. But again, I'll email those to you. None of this will be unfamiliar because there's really nothing new. This is carry forward from even what we would have seen last year. So as a matter of course, the governor has until it's April 3rd or 4th to sign bills. The last bill signed normally is the operating budget. So if there's anything that comes out of vetoes, there's always a handful of vetoes that occur. I will follow up with you and let you know. But that'll probably be kind of the last communication we have in terms of the legislative session for this year in the next couple 3 weeks. And then, by then it's April. Start talking to you in, July, August-ish about next year. And, capital projects, again, are always something to be thinking about. So not a conversation for today, but just letting you know that, we'll start this up again in 4 or 5 months.
Well, STA sure did well.
Yeah, I was just thinking
My
about that.
good
God.
Yeah, on
So
that
So
first
some of
day-
that, Commissioner, remember, some of that is probably coming out of where you're looking, which line, towards the bottom.
Well, no, this whole list, what's on the screen right
Oh,
now.
well,
It's
remember, a
like-
lot of that is CCA funds. So a
Yeah.
lot of that's coming out of the Climate Commitment Act funds that were shifted into transportation projects for emission reductions, and because some of that,
They're getting a lot of dough.
So what is the Geiger pre-wash? NPDES?
Yeah, or the Wandermere pre-wash.
Yeah, what are those?
I don't know what those are.
They're probably commercial truck washes to avoid traffic.
Do you know, Kyle, do you know what that acronym is? NPDES?
Yeah, that's national.
That's a pollution permit,
That's our
right,
discharge
Kyle?
permit. So you have one
Yeah.
for your stormwater system and one for your wastewater system. So my guess would be that it's a stormwater related funding program to
So is that going to you guys then? No?
Who's it going to?
Wandermere? Well, I mean, Wandermere's county. I mean, who would that go to?
beyond me.
If you want, commissioners, I can reach out to the staffer that does this stuff and see if I can get an answer for you for more specifics of what they are.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd be interested in knowing what those are because I'm not familiar with the Geiger pre-wash.
It's pretty far north in Wandermere.
Yeah.
Seventh district is accurate.
Well, and yeah, what's in the 7th, nobody refers to that as Wandermere.
The only part of the 7th is way up north.
Yeah, in Deer Park. So I don't know Wandermere, why that would be 7th district. I don't know. It'd be nice to, yeah, if you can get.
I'll see if I can get an answer.
Yeah.
I can. So some of this stuff, it gets coded and it's hard to understand unless it's a specific project you were working.
And we don't know if they're gonna put it at that pole out right south of the county line. There's a
I don't know.
DOT pole out there.
Here's some more.
But I'll send those to you.
Okay. There's a lot on here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's every project in Spokane County. But remember, if you go back to the top, scroll back up to the top for me, Ron. So you have the dates. So some of it remembers, obviously it says prior, and then you have the 27, 25, 27, 27, 29. Like I said, a lot of this money was already slotted in this paper. This project list for Spokane County would have looked the same for last year as it would for this year.
Commissioners, you have this in your inbox. Judy
Yeah.
sent it out this
Oh, okay.
And Kyle, the Argonne Road reconstruction, okay, is that an amount you're happy with? I guess it's like we've got
Total.
3, yeah, I mean, I see 3.96 and then up above it, Argonne Road Interstate 90 Bridge, that wouldn't be us, but the Argonne Road reconstruction, I mean, almost 4. So I assume that could go a ways.
But Kyle, that should have been money you knew about, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, I'll try to get an answer for you on those pre-wash issues.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yeah, I guess Kyle, if you could, look through this list and then, kind of tell us what's happening for us, what you knew about, what you didn't know about, that'd be appreciative.
Certainly. Do you want me to look at things for the valley and the city as well?
I think it'd just be good for us to understand who's getting what, especially with Al and Josh on SRTC. I think it'd be a good exercise for us to be aware of what's happening, what's going on, and who got what funding.
Sure thing.
I don't know. Commissioner French, do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. The other thing is, this is a combination of, because down close to the bottom, it says Snowden Elementary Safe Routes to School. That's a TIB grant and not part of the state transportation. So this is a combination of many sources.
Yeah, it's different. Like I said, you make a good point, Commissioner. So there's TIB in there, but like I said, there's CCA dollars in here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it'd be good to know which funding pots these are coming from, because just like the Sunset Highway bike path for, 1.5 million seems like a lot. Just when you look at this list, I agree with my fellow commissioners. It's like STA seemed to do really well, but it could be a whole different pot of funding. But it's still all funding that doesn't get to transportation needs, that need to happen. So I don't know.
Kyle, if you need to just reach out to me and I'll help you close the loop on some of these if you don't know what they are, where they're coming from.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain that bike path is going from the top of Sunset Hill and trying to get out to connect to where there's pathway that Airway Heights is built.
And the plow drivers need a place to put the snow. So, I mean, we need those bike paths.
Snow storage / bike path.
Yeah, so, understood. Okay, any other questions for Mike?
Okay, I'll try to close the loop on those things for you. And like I said, Kyle, reach out if you need any help so we can get some answers on these.
All right, thank you
All
very
right.
much, Mike.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Bye.
All right, next up, Erin Gertel. We're gonna check, she's usually online, so we'll promote Erin. There we are. Erin Gertel.
Good morning. Oh my
Good
gosh,
morning.
that background's amazing.
Well, it is St. Patty's Day, and so you have the right color. Things look great out at the fairgrounds. Look at
That
that,
matches
lush green grass.
Once again, we're in the weeds.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? I'm getting a little feedback.
A slight echo, but we can still understand you.
Okay, great.
Oh, we've lost the sound though. We've lost your audio. Now we can't hear you.
I'm back.
Yep.
Okay. I'm here to brief you today on a grant we've been awarded from the Washington State Department of Ag.
Okay.
And we've been awarded $250,000 to go towards our sprinkler fire suppression project for the ag complex. Specifically ag buildings B, C, and D. So this is a project we're looking to complete this summer. So I'm here today to just request your approval of accepting this grant, and it should be on your agenda on March 24th. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? Aaron,
I don't know.
I think we're good. I think most importantly, how is Cedar and Clover?
They're doing wonderful.
All those of you looking at me in confusion, shame on you for not knowing Cedar and Clover. Aaron knows what I'm talking about. Cedar, the celebrity, our celebrity mascot had a baby named Clover.
Very exciting, just a couple of weeks ago. So Clover will be at the fair this year.
Be sure to check out the Spokane County. Be sure to check out the Spokane County Fair Facebook page, and you can stay up to date. Okay.
I'm afraid to talk at this point.
It's not you, it's all the other people.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're good on the grant, Aaron.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Kyle Tuick.
Morning, commissioners. Got Amy here with me, talk a little bit about the proposed West Plains APA. Had a lot of meetings and goings on with this of the late. And so wanted to update you all as we kind of seem to always rush into the finish line with APAs and getting them to the ballot. So we have state law authority to establish an APA under RCW 3636. We have had discussions going for almost a year now with our partner municipalities on the West Plains about establishing this. I'm going to let Amy walk you through some of the details here, but the long story short is we are modeling it after the SVRP APA in basically identical in duration and fee, and have done our best to establish a boundary that makes sense out here, that everybody that we have been speaking with can kind of nod at. So Amy, why don't you go ahead and walk through a few of these.
Okay. So we discussed a proposed West Plains boundary with the municipalities, and you'll see that shortly in a few slides. We proposed a parcel rate that's the same as the SBRP Aquifer Protection Area. There's still those two types of fees, one for water use and then one for if you're on septic systems, and those are $15 per year for each of those for most residents. And then the proposed activities to be funded by the APA was discussed with the municipalities as well. We'll go over that. Next slide. So this is the proposed West Plains APA boundary. It includes Airway Heights, Medical Lake, and Cheney. As with the SBRP APA, we cannot include a city or town without their approval, and we're working on those. Fairchild Air Force Base had to be excluded because we cannot impose a fee on federal parcels without their consent, and we don't think that we're going to be able to get that consent in time. And this includes approximately 18,000 parcels. Next slide. So in addition to the residential rates, which are $15 per water use and per septic system on the parcels, there are non-house rates or commercial type rates that are by meter size, and these are the same rates that we discussed with the municipalities, and they are essentially the same as the SBRP APA. Next slide. So the allowable expenditures in the RCW are planning, stormwater, sanitary sewer, drinking water. Those are infrastructure type spending. Water quality monitoring or water level monitoring, enforcement, and education. So we proposed out of the approximately 400K revenue to have several county-led items, which includes having a dedicated staff person to kind of work and focus on West Plains issues. Establish a monitoring program, kind of how we have for the SBRP aquifer, and to provide education to the West Plains schools as we do with classrooms here over in Spokane. So that remains, has a remaining funding of 160K after those county-led programs. And we can either distribute them to the municipalities that are participating, or we can pull that into regional funding for programs such as a comprehensive plan, larger construction projects, or there was some interest in having water conservation rebates to kind of get people to reduce their water use. So those are some of the ideas that were discussed. I think the county-led items were kind of more solidified, but we're still trying to figure out what else we could do with that money.
And the conversations were real productive. We've met with all three city councils multiple times, and some staff meetings as well. The point with the kind of proposed activities is really the launching point here. Over 20 years, how these needs change. I think everybody was nodding that will be a little bit of an evolution, but everybody was very supportive of kind of this initial slate. The municipalities were very interested in the conservation programs. That's one of the best ways to improve the health of your water distribution system is to use less water. So there's a lot of thought going on in this, and really if the citizens do pass this, we wouldn't have $1 in the fund until for about 13 months. So we have additional time through some public input and additional meetings with the municipalities to vet out the program in a little bit more detail. Next slide, Rob.
So here is our anticipated timeline and to get the APA on the August 2026 ballot. It requires us to get all of our documentation into the elections office by May 1st. And we're starting with this briefing. We're hoping that you'll approve the notice of public hearing on your March 31st meeting. Then we'll publish that notice and have the public hearing on April 14th. We also need to select and approve a for and against committee no later than towards the end of April to get that information into elections. We also have the cities considering their resolutions for inclusion into the APA. The city of Cheney has already passed their resolution. And we're waiting this week on City of Airway Heights and City of Medical Lakes, which will happen today and tomorrow.
Actually, Airway Heights passed theirs last night.
Oh, last night.
So Airway Heights is voted unanimously to be included as well. And the Medical Lake meeting is tonight.
So if we don't get those resolutions, we'll have to move forward without that municipality, just to keep that clear. I believe that's the last slide, so if there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, Ron, can you go back to the slide with the boundary? So I've been asked a number of times, see how the city of Spokane and the airport come in to cut into there. And with everything else that we're dealing with, the question was, shouldn't that be part of the West Plains as opposed to part of the Spokane Raft and Prairie? And I didn't have a good answer other than it's voted on by municipality and that's their boundary. Is that the right answer?
That's the right answer.
Okay.
Now, this will be a gray area and maybe Jasper can weigh in for me. I do not believe that there would be anything precluding the city of Spokane from using SVRP funds out in this area because
Okay.
their boundary extends out into this area.
Okay,
Do you agree, Jasper?
Yeah, I would agree. You know, it covers the entire area of their municipality, so they can spend those funds at the
Okay.
airport as well.
okay. So that's a political decision that they can make.
Exactly.
All right, thank you.
So we are moving very fast towards the August ballot deadline, which is May 1st. Getting all our ducks in a row, making sure we have everything ready to rock. Fortunately, because of this year, that's a very inexpensive ballot. So it's going to be considerably low cost compared to the last one. And yeah, one of the last steps for the board is the for and against committees. So we've begun reaching out. We reached out to probably a dozen folks so far. I don't have names for the against committee. If you have any recommendations or you want to try, but we will be bringing some names forward to you here shortly on once we hear back from everybody on the four committee so that you can select from those names. We've got a few that responded in favor and a few we haven't heard back from.
So do you have any leads for the against? So I would suggest maybe Terry Horn.
Okay.
As one, and then Gary. I think it's Gary Chappelle. I'll confirm that for you and get that. He's with the one of the HOAs there in West Terrace and stuff. So my guess is the two of them will probably oppose this.
Thank you. Would you have a quick moment for a couple of public works related miscellaneous items right now. Sure. Okay. I wanted to ask the board if how they felt about potentially submitting my name or Ben's name for the Fairchild Air Force Base Restoration Advisory Board. We do not have a representative on that now, or if a commissioner would like to be on that.
I've requested 4 times,
Okay,
4 times
to be on it.
to be on it,
Okay,
in writing twice. Jeff Johnson has told me 3 times, yes, we're gonna put you on it.
You
And yet,
or Kyle?
me,
You.
Okay.
Oh,
and yet nada.
we have a contact out there. We have the information for that, and we will forward your name along,
Okay,
which is perfect because Ben and I are both out of town for the next meeting.
when's the next meeting?
It's like April 7th or something. It's over
I'm
spring break.
back. I'm back. Okay,
There's a RAB meeting and then there's a RAB public meeting.
public meeting, yeah, it's the 7th and 8th.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, we will, we'll get that done.
good, thank you.
Had a quick update for you all. As you know, this is on Doug's behalf. He's out of town right now. Parks Board, solicitor put an RFQ out for an owner's rep for the Liberty Lake Golf Course Maintenance Facility. And the scoring committee met on Friday, and the highest, most qualified team was Turner Townsend in Erie. So that will be hitting your legislative agenda to get that contract moving forward. We're kind of on a quick deadline to get in front of the State Project Review Committee on that one. And my last one was just to update the board. Al, I think you're well aware, but the RFQ for the Poet System installations was reviewed and scored and selected. We only had 3 firms to choose from. Northwind was the firm that was the highest scoring. Didn't quite have enough confidence from the other proposals to award to multiple firms at this time. So there is contemplation of putting another RFQ out with some of the things we've learned from this one, but wanting to get moving with Northwind. And so that is on your legislative agenda, so we can move as quickly as possible to start getting these things on the ground.
Thanks for your work.
Good.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay.
That's that from me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
All right, now next up is George Dahl. Amber, did you have something? I know she turned your camera on. Commissioner Waldriff, you turned your
Sorry,
camera-
yeah,
Joe?
no, I was just saying, I know that I don't know what goes on with that RAB at the Air Force Base, but I'm glad if we can get somebody on there, I think that would be great. So thank you, Commissioner French. I don't know, they seem to want somebody from the county, but then, I don't know why it's been so hard to connect. So anyway, hopefully you can connect.
Well, there's something about the leadership, because I literally, without exaggeration, 4 times I've requested, twice in writing, and Jeff Johnson with the Fairchild keeps on saying, yes, we can get you on there, and here I am still on the outside waiting to get in. And so it's very frustrating. I don't know whether it's the leadership or what's going on there, but it's a challenge, and we clearly need to be there, and I've been banging on it for 2 years.
Commissioner,
right.
You know, the chair of the RAB is Jonathan Welch. We have a good contact with him through Ben.
Okay.
So we will forward that on to you and send you what we have.
Okay, thank you.
All right, George, you've brought a whole crew with you.
Yeah, we got friends. We can go ahead and have Chris introduce folks.
Yeah, so just kind of in our collaboration with the city, we've been talking about kind of better data analysis over the last couple of years. So we have Don and Amanda here to present the 2025 LSA, and we can explain a little bit more on what that means. And then I also wanted to kind of put a shameless plug in here that kind of the intent to sharing this data is obviously to inform our better inform our funding decisions moving forward. for our upcoming contracts. We've got some that'll be reviewed by the HCDAC in 3 weeks from now, and will be for the board in the April timeframe. So good information here, and then allows us to kind of better analyze what we're currently funding and what we're hoping to fund in the future.
Thank you. Good morning. The 2025 LSA was submitted on time, which is always very helpful, and it does add to our points at any sort of competition. And it stands for the Longitudinal Systems Analysis. It's a federally mandated report that has been happening for about, in this format, 15 years. It was only last year the first time that we were able to publish this data for everyone to see in an easy to understand format. It includes analysis on everything from demographics to patterns of system usage to where everybody goes to once they leave the system. It includes all emergency shelters, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing projects. Next slide, please. Now, the reporting period for this is 10/1/24 to 9/30/25. As I mentioned, it looks at everything from patterns of system usage to exit destinations to the retention of the permanent housing once they're there. Next slide, please. Now, comparing the 2024 and 2025, we did notice some key improvements that have happened across the system. One of them being the 11% decrease that occurred in individuals served, went from over 7,000 to around 6,400. We've also seen a significant increase in the number of individuals exiting to permanent housing to about 29%. And when they do exit to permanent housing, we have a 96% retention rate, with only 4% of those coming back. Now, with the returns to the system, we have seen over a 40% decrease in those returning to the system just within the past 2 years. Now, those that are exiting emergency shelter to permanent housing has increased 85%. Just over the past year. We're up to 13% of individuals exiting emergency shelters going to permanent housing. And those that are in permanent housing right now in the permanent supportive housing buildings, all those colorful buildings around town, when they do leave there, 57% of them are going to their own independent permanent housing units. And that's a 54% increase over last year. Next slide, please.
Can I ask before you move off of this? So are these percentages based so on each column there? So you have individuals served, the 7,221. Percentage of individuals exiting permanent housing, 22%. So is it 22% of that 7,221? That's
No.
I mean, because it's 22% of what, I guess. If we don't have that number, what is it of?
It is on some future slides. Yeah. And it's in it's more detailed in the report, but the individual served is just folks that the system touched. There are
Okay.
certainly, so within that 60 or 6,430, that includes folks who are in permanent supportive housing, but not all 6,400 were in permanent supportive housing.
Okay.
So it's, but there is, the answer to your question, Commissioner, is in the full report and on a future slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you define for me what permanent housing is?
So in this context, the permanent supportive housing basically means a unit that is subsidized with wraparound services on site. So projects like Hope House, the VOA apartments above the Hope House shelter, Catholic Charities certainly has several PSH units, but it's basically a subsidized unit that has on-site wraparound case management, might have substance use counselors, peer support. People are helping keep that person stabilized in housing.
I want to clarify too, that's permanent supportive
Yeah.
housing. If we're talking about permanent housing, that's of course rental by subsidy. They're paying for their own unit. Without a subsidy, pretty much the permanent housing solutions you would think of when you're saying something.
Yes, that very bottom line there is folks who are in a unit with supportive services. 54% of, or 57% of them left that unit with services for their own unit without services because they were independently able to go with their own housing and no longer need help.
Right, so this is just a quicker review, and then Commissioner, on the next slide will be the answer to a question of how many individuals did exit.
Okay, thank you.
So the length of time that people are in emergency shelter and transitional housing, or even in a rapid rehousing program before they actually move into their housing, is averaging right now at about 107 days. If we could go to the next slide, please. All right. So this is the map that shows every single household that entered the system, the different programs that they were served. As you can see, the majority are going straight into emergency shelter. And then as they move through the system to the point of housing, that's where that dotted line is. And then the green is when they go to permanent housing. So then you have the big percentages, and then you can see of how many people exiting, they went to permanent housing. The big red bar at the bottom is who is returning, and as I mentioned, that is only at 4%. But overall, the system is having 29% of those who are leaving go straight into permanent housing.
Permanent housing and permanent supported housing, correct?
Yes.
Both.
Correct.
So, okay.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then of that 29%, that next percentage are exiting into their own kind of market driven housing. I can't see it.
Yeah, sorry, that's
I
really
can't
far
see
away.
the numbers from here, but you can see the household served on each line.
This one wasn't in our packet. Do you? Oh, did you email that out? Okay. Okay.
Next slide, please, if we're ready. Thanks. Okay, so this looks at the three main groupings of household types. So we have adult only, everyone is over the age of 18, adult and child, at least one person is over the age of 18, at least one person is under the age of 18. And child only, everybody in the household is under the age of 18. The majority of the success that we're seeing in exiting to permanent housing is in the adult and child households. Now, something that is very interesting that you could note from last year is that we have a significant decrease in the number of people leaving to an unknown destination. And that is really thanks to all the efforts of the providers in cleaning up the data quality. Next slide, please. Okay. Now this looks at pathways and where everybody left depending on the pathway. Now a pathway for this report is defined as all the different interventions that someone participated in before they ultimately left the system. Now this shows that transitional housing continues to be an incredibly successful measure, and that when you combine any of the other interventions, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, or even permanent supportive housing with emergency shelter, the likelihood that someone will exit to permanent housing and stay there increases exponentially. Next slide, please. Now this is focused on returns. Now returns is a little interesting because you usually have to shift the timeline back 2 years. The majority of the returns that we saw were in the adult only household, and then you'll see on the next slide what project type that came through mostly. It's very unlikely that once we put an adult and child household into permanent housing, they will come back. Next slide, please. Now this looks at all the different pathways that someone went to and their likelihood to return if they went through all of those pathways. Now, the one that has the most likelihood of return is emergency shelter when it stands on its own and doesn't combine with anything else. But once we do combine it with transitional housing or rapid, it's very likely that people will stay stably and permanently housed. Next slide, please. The next couple of slides are focused on the demographic. It's 6,430 people that were served. And this is really only a fraction since it's limited to just interventions with beds. Next slide, please. So this looks at all of the age groupings. So the majority, about 51%, are in the 25 to 54 age range. And then when we look at the kiddos, they tend to be between the ages of 0 and 17 for the most part. Next slide, please. Now, when we're looking at the race, there are different ways that they can be selected. So that darkest blue is saying that it's a single race, not Hispanic or Latino. And then the lighter blue is saying that they were a single race, but Hispanic and Latino. And then the teal is that they selected multiple races, not Hispanic and Latino. And then that mint color is multiple races and Hispanic and Latino. For the most part, we can see that when they select single race, it is white. But there is still a proportion that differs from our census where we have more people of color in the system than the population of their proportion in the census. Especially when you look at Black, African, American, American Indian, Alaska Native, and Pacific Islander as well. Next slide, please. Now this looks at the household composition. Most of the time what we see in the system is a household is of a single individual. And if it's a family, you tend to have a single adult with 1 to 2 children. Those are the 2 biggest household types that we serve system-wide. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, transitional housing remains an intervention that continues to support outcomes to permanent housing and retention of that outcome. We do, once they are in permanent housing, we have a 96% retention rate with only 4% of them coming back. As I mentioned, the over 6,400 individuals is only a fraction because it doesn't include our eviction prevention or homelessness prevention. It does not include street outreach. It does not include coordinated entry. So it's still just a very small portion of what we serve. We're going to continue to focus on outreach efforts and navigation programs and seek opportunities to expand access to transitional housing, as well as the eviction prevention and homelessness prevention to stabilize households before they enter the homeless system, which is what we credit with that reduction that we saw being served in the system this year. Now, the next slide just has all the links to this report, both in 2024 and 2025. One can be found on our website, as well as additional reports provided by the Homeless Management Information System team.
Questions that folks have.
So one of the things that stood out to me was the difference in when a child is present. When it was an adult and a child, you had a greater success rate. Is that because there are more services that are given to that sort of family unit when there's a child? Or is it that maybe the adult understands, I've got a kid, I've got to step up and I've got to really buckle down to improve their lives? It's a combination of both. What do you attribute that success rate when a child is a part of the family unit than when it's not?
Yeah, the services available are relatively similar regardless of household type. We certainly see that folks with children are less acute. They're less likely to have been chronically homeless. They've probably been chronic for a shorter period of time. They might have more resources. They're more likely to have employment and need a short-term intervention. So there's a less acute population than our single households that tend to be our most acute, most chronic individuals needing help.
Okay. Commissioner Waldron?
Oh, sorry, I just add, Commissioner, I think part of it too is the housing market is also much more friendly to families in many cases.
Okay.
And so it's also easier to find landlords who can work with us to house those individuals than it is to find landlords who want to take the potential risk of housing some of our singles who are more acute. So it's a housing supply and a stability combination.
Actually, before I move on to Commissioner Waldron, can you tell, the definition of homeless is, I mean, it's pretty broad. Sometimes there's an individual, like if is it still like if a child is living with their grandparents, sometimes that's considered. If someone is couch surfing, it's not necessarily unhoused out on the street. There's a very broad definition. Can you give us sort of the quick rundown on what actually qualifies as homeless?
Yes, the Department of Education defines homeless much more broadly.
Okay.
Which is why when you look at like the OSPI reports that come out, they show far more homeless students than our homeless information management system data shows. Our HMIS data is looking at literal homelessness. We're not counting doubled up. And many families find themselves in situations where they are living, multi-generationally or with an aunt or whatever it is. So that's different. And then the other big piece is that the chronic definition of homelessness has very specific parameters around it related to how many times you've been homeless or length of homelessness. Plus, you have to have a disabling condition to fit the chronic status. And we certainly see that most frequently in the singles population. It's very rare to see a family who's chronically homeless. But chronically homeless is very specifically defined, and for this report's purposes, it's literal homelessness. You're not counting doubled up households, which the OSPI reports do, and show a much higher number of unstably housed children in the region.
Okay, yeah, cause I did, yeah, every once in a while, you know, when that report comes out, you'll hear media reporting thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
children, you know, countywide that are homeless, and it's like, I mean, it just
That's
kind of
it.
mind boggling, cause sometimes like it seems that number is larger than the number that anybody talks about the total population of homeless, and it just, it's kind of hard to keep all those numbers straight.
Well, it's not helpful because of the way that HUD and at the federal level, they're defined differently. And so it also changed, like, we can't serve some of those students, whereas if we had alignments on definitions, we could provide more services to some of those families than we can't currently. So it's confusing, and it makes implications on the ground in terms of how we actually help people, because an unstably housed family is somebody we want to be able to help.
Yeah.
But they're not meeting our definition of homelessness from HUD.
Thank you. Commissioner Waldron.
Well, thanks so much for the presentation. It seems very hopeful that we are seeing better numbers and increases in getting people into permanent housing. So congratulations to the city and the county staff. I guess my question would be, what do you think are the biggest challenges, and what does the data tell you about where we should be making some different investments, you know, into this next year?
Yeah, so I think, you know, one of the big things continues to be transitional housing. We saw that in last year's report and this year's report, that it's definitely the most successful outcome, especially for our most acute individuals experiencing homelessness. It's also the most expensive intervention, and one that HUD currently does not allow us to use federal funds for. And so I think it's continuing to really look at local opportunities to expand funding for transitional housing. There could be changes at the federal government level on that in the next contract cycle, but it's kind of a TBD situation. The other big thing we're looking at is continuing to expand our street outreach and navigation models. We've seen the quicker we can engage somebody in services, the more likely we are to get them housed. And so really creating more opportunities for quick engagement with somebody who can immediately access real care in real time. So ongoing investments in navigation, outreach. Street medicine has proven very successful as well in trying to prevent folks from entering the hospital system. So ongoing investments in respite care, especially when we think about the aging population that we're starting to see show up more and more in the homeless system. So looking more at respite opportunities. The partnership with Providence has been great, but we certainly need more of that. So those are kind of the areas we're going to focus on going forward to kind of continue to hopefully keep this trajectory going.
And I'll add to that, Commissioner Waldron, that some of the things that we've been hearing on the county side, or at least from our providers, are kind of the lack of ability to move on from some participants from some of these services. So really the catchment from rapid rehousing or homelessness prevention into those permanent housing options, that bottleneck is quite slim, right? And so we're now kind of fighting the battle of having state funds and kind of very specific intervention types, and not being able to move those individuals on to permanent housing because of lack of availability, and of course because of lack of stability in that household still as they receive that subsidy. So that's something that we'll continue to manage as well.
One thing too, just to let Chris maybe think of, that this report does not cover the state's investment in eviction prevention or homeless prevention, which both the county and the city manage funds for, and that's been a really, really successful way to prevent folks from entering the homeless system that's newer in the last 5 years. So really continuing to refine how we administer those funds and support those households as well, to try and serve more individuals, so that we're continuing to stop people from entering the system altogether.
Can I just weigh in? Are you able to share data about that homeless prevention, eviction prevention? Do you have any data that you could follow up with on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the links in Amanda's presentation should take you to the HMIS dashboard sites, and those homeless prevention projects are all in there with their performance metrics.
Okay.
And do publish our quarterly performance reports for each project that also show that. They're all on the city website, but I'm happy to send you a link, Commissioner, so you can look at those.
And how successful is it getting that data on the health district, also is presenting some of that data? Or is that still being updated, or do you see opportunities to enhance how we tell the public about the story of what's happening to address homelessness?
Yeah, so the regional health district is still hosting our dashboards, and those continue to be updated quarterly. Amanda's team works with SRHG to get those updated every time we do a quarterly performance report. So all of that data is there. I think one of the big things that we're working on this year, and we met with the county and city staff 2 or 3 weeks ago, but is to really start looking at how are contracts spending down. Do we have providers that are underperforming, and then other providers where we're seeing really positive outcomes, and we can reallocate resources to make sure that the funds are getting to the best, highest use. And I think that's a story that the public would hopefully be interested in, because it's really demonstrating, strong fiscal management, but also really prioritizing outcomes. And we're definitely using those quarterly dashboards to kind of inform where are projects high performers and where are projects struggling to either spend or meet outcomes, and how do we realign to make sure that we're being good stewards of funds and prioritizing true outcome versus just an output. And that's been a great partnership with George and his staff and our staff, trying to make sure that we're taking in all the information as we consider those kinds of reallocations, to make sure that we're not disjointedly impacting each other's efforts and projects.
I think in addition to that, one of the things that we're seeing that's working really well for our providers, from a customer service standpoint as well as an accountability standpoint, is joint monitoring. So the county staff is partnering with the city staff, ensuring that all the performance metrics are met. And then if we have deficiencies, we're working on corrective action plans, system improvement measures. So I think the data, really what you're seeing in this report with these positive trends that we're seeing is really symbolic of the relationship that we have with the city of Spokane, and working together to make sure that we're addressing this thing as a collective for the region. So I think that's really showing through in the data that we're seeing.
Yeah, we've had huge improvements in data quality in the last 2 years. So when the first LSA we submitted during the current administration, that was for the prior year's data, we had about 160 red flags from HUD when we uploaded the LSA that were basically indicators of poor data or data that seemed invalid. This year when we submitted, we started with like 48 flags. And that's really a testament to the providers, as well as Kurt working so closely with our HMIS team to make sure that we are holding providers accountable to data quality and data timeliness, so that when we are using data to make decisions, it's accurate data that's thoroughly completed, as opposed to kind of the data for a couple of years there, we were missing a lot of data. Agencies were not being held accountable for entering their data. So it makes it hard to make a data-driven decision without all the information. So the city and the county staff have worked really closely with our providers to really improve that data quality, so that we can make as informed decisions as possible. And that's been very successful and helpful.
So if you were to total up all the revenue, all the revenue that's going into the program, how much are we spending per recipient or per permanent housing recipient?
That's something that we can certainly pull. We look at spend down on a quarterly basis. Part of the challenge is that not every intervention costs the same to manage, but we can look at it by intervention type. The most expensive interventions tend to be with families, which makes sense for a myriad of reasons, but that tends to be the most cost per person tends to be on the family system. But we had a council member ask a similar question yesterday, so we can coordinate with George and Chris and get you kind of a summary of what, on average, what each intervention tends to cost per person.
So if you could, I don't know how your data is working and stuff, but if you can break it down by single male, single female, parent with child, that would be informative from my standpoint.
Yeah, we can absolutely work towards that. We did have one contract that's launching soon that we're funding a little bit differently, so we had to calculate this, and I wanna say we were spending about $23,000 per year per household on permanent supportive housing. And that was predominantly in salaries of case management staff that were supporting that household.
Right.
But that was just one permanent supportive housing example. We can coordinate and get kind of a more holistic look at all different interventions.
So, and you still might run the program now, I don't know. But I can remember when there was, I think it was called Transitions, or Women in Transitions. It was to help women that were, you know, either trying to get out of a divorce, trying to get away from a hostile situation. And is that program still viable and working? And how many recipients of services are there for those folks?
The folks fleeing DV, which sounds like a little bit what you're describing. Their data is a little bit more anonymous in the system for safety reasons.
Okay.
But we can certainly pull kind of on average how many folks are being served by those projects. And those tend to be a little bit different in nature because those individuals are not being housed in a multifamily complex typically.
Right.
And those individuals typically are not actually accessing emergency shelter. Most of our DV sheltering options happen through hotel vouchers for safety reasons. So the cost is a little bit different. When we did our last scattered site shelter budget system or budget setting, the kind of ballpark cost per shelter bed per night was around $55 a night. On the DV survivor piece, it was a little bit higher because they tend to skew towards hotels. But we could certainly pull some of that.
So is the number of cases, and I can remember we had a couple years where there was spiking in the numbers. Where are we at today with regard to the total number of, I don't need to know exactly, but I'm just looking for a trend analysis. Are women still being subjected at a high rate to abuse? And are we providing the services necessary to keep them safe? And how many of those that are subjected to that with children?
I don't know that we've seen any major trend change in the number of folks on average accessing those services. But we'd have to look deeper into the data to separate those households a little bit. Most of them, I believe, have children attached. The ones who really are fleeing DV. But I don't think we've seen a major change in the number of folks on average accessing services. But the YWCA does most of that work for us, but we can certainly talk with their leadership and kind of just get some anecdotes from them in terms of what are they seeing at aggregate levels, because that data is a little bit less public.
Yeah, and my interest there is just if there is a trend that says that more women are being subjected to abuse, does that inform us about how we allocate funding
Absolutely.
so that we keep them safe?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's I guess the bottom line is where I'm trying to go.
Yeah, and that's part of our, when the county and city staff meet regularly and do kind of some of their spend down and performance reporting, that's exactly what we're looking at. It's kind of where has the community need shifted and where do we need to reallocate resources? Because some of our contracts, they run 2 or 3 years and the pressing issue at the beginning might not be the pressing issue at the end. And so that's some of the places where, we had some contracts last year, we actually took money away from family services and reallocated it to single services based purely on community need.
Right.
So that is happening, but I'd have to talk in more detail to get specific on the DV piece. Yeah.
Thank you.
But just for context too, we do still fund transitions as a project as well as the YWCA.
Good, thank you.
But we'll get you some more.
Yeah, I love the program.
Yeah.
And stuff, so.
They do really good work.
Yeah.
Can I ask, along the lines of what Commissioner French was asking there, if I'd love to see those numbers that he asked for, but if I could ask just kind of the top line number, I mean, when the 6,430 individuals served, what's the dollar amount? How much money was spent serving those 6,430 people? Because I did a quick control F, and in that several 100-page document, nowhere does a dollar sign show up. It's like that. There's no cost to any of this. So I'd love to just know how much money was spent between October 1st, 2024 to September 30th, 2025.
So two just comments on that. One is that the HMIS reporting and our financial reporting are intentionally maintained separately by HUD. We receive on an annual basis on the continuum of care level, so the HUD funds that are really homelessness specific. We receive about 7 million a year. That might be a little bit low. And that $7 million a year funds more than just interventions captured by this data. Because it also funds things like coordinated entry, which were on that slide 2, we're in the not covered table from the LSA. So we can kind of pull that. What's complicated is that, and this came up yesterday at council as well, but if we take House of Charity, for example, we are a very small portion, even between the county and city combined, we're a fairly small portion of the House of Charity's annual budget. They spend, the agency subsidizes that shelter fairly significantly on an annual basis. So even if I just pulled what the city invested in House of Charity compared to the 135 beds they have, it's not a complete picture because we're really nobody's sole funder.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so that particular data point is a
And
little
I
bit tricky.
assume they probably have private donations too that
Absolutely.
they get, and
Yeah.
I have no idea if they have to report that, if there's any way you.
I mean,
That's private.
we get all of their data regardless of the dollar that paid for the bed that
Okay.
night. So we have all the data, we just don't necessarily have their internal agency budget. I mean, we have it, but it's not something that we store in our fiscal notes. But if you think about it, at 7 to 8 million a year from HUD homelessness funds, and that pays for much of these interventions, but more. So we're spending less than $8 million a year on those individuals. However, there's non-HUD money that rolls into that. There's certainly county money in some of those projects. It's not coming through HUD. I'm not sure if you recall from the regional, when we used to kind of regional meetings, we had put up at one point kind of this financial tracker that we were all working to get data into.
Which was a great, I have shared that with so many people.
It's helpful.
It is.
That is
Yeah.
still kind of the most accurate way that we're keeping track of, at least at the local government investment in projects and the cost per bed. Just none of it accounts for the funds that agencies get direct from other state funders or from their fundraising opportunities and that kind of thing. But Councilmember Cathcart asked as well, so I've committed to him to try and get a closer answer to that question. It's just with the varied funding streams and the varied funders, it's hard to get a perfect detailed answer, but we get pretty close to that too.
And I'd like to throw in one more request. Now, since you brought up that graph, can you two and Gloria Mans from the Valley kind of update that graph, that graphic on, because I think it was for a biennium, correct?
Yeah,
It was
and
a 2-year period.
I was
if
gonna
remember
mention that as
correctly.
well, and
Yeah.
we've kind of been waiting-ish a little bit on kind of getting through all of our funding awards for the next cycle.
Okay.
We've got our midstream awards coming up here in April, so that should be a good opportunity to kind of update that. Don mentioned it pretty saliently that, biennium awards from the state, we've got monthly, local document recording fees that we gather, federal awards that are federal funding cycle, so everything's kind of mishmashed together.
So I remember correctly, it was around 50 million, correct, for the biennium?
Just under that,
Just
just for 2 years, and again, that is just a very basic rough look at, here's the fund that we put into the system.
Yeah.
Here's what HMIS is telling
Yeah,
us.
there was no philanthropic
Outcomes,
dollars,
yeah.
no private dollars that go into the system or anything like that, it was just
That-
government funding.
Absolutely. And that 50 million covers far more than the interventions listed in this report. So like eviction prevention is so many millions a year. And that's not included in the LSA. So we're probably doing seven total. Biennium,
I don't.
the homeless prevention contract.
Oh, yeah, just under $8 million for 2 years.
Yeah, and
Just for homeless.
that's just homeless prevention, and none of those households are in this data.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. HUD requires that this report only look at those particular interventions, which is why the system performance measures that will come out in the next couple of weeks are a more holistic approach at the whole system. That would encapsulate more of those things that are funded outside of that HUD cycle.
Sure, French.
So, we see here a lot in the media about fraud in Minneapolis and other Northeast states and stuff. And can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you do to make sure that that doesn't happen here locally? Because I want to be in a position to where I can say to constituents, yes, we manage your tax dollars in a way to where we prevent the fraud from happening. But I can't say that without knowing specifically what it is that we do.
Absolutely. So I can't speak at the county's process, but I'm sure it's similar. At the city side, we, on a monthly basis, all of our contracts are reimbursement only. So the agency has to pay the expense first and then submit to us a monthly invoice for reimbursement of those expenses, which is part of that checks and balance, to make sure that we're not giving them cash and then having no ability to see where it goes. Those monthly invoices include an extreme amount of detail, including time and effort reported by staff, payroll ledgers, any expense item. Staff review those invoices on a monthly basis before approving those for actual payment. That often includes some question and answer back and forth with the agency, not because anything was fraudulent, but because a receipt might not be clear or there might be a misunderstanding in a calculation. Those are then paid on a monthly basis by accounting. And then the real big monitoring effort is what George alluded to a little bit ago, where the city and county actually now jointly monitor projects, which means we're doing case reviews of individual clients to make sure that all protocols are being filed. We're doing deeper dives on the fiscal audit to make sure that any expense was eligible. And then those monitorings result in a letter to the agency that either outlines a finding if there was an issue and the way that they could do a corrective action plan to come back into compliance. Or if no issue is identified, they get a notice of clear monitoring. And that happens on an annual basis for every single contract and project. In a joint effort between the city and county to make sure that we're all seeing the same thing. And then if we catch something, which happened like 2 weeks ago, we noticed an issue with an agency that was not financial, but it was a client release of information signing issue. If that's a phone call to George and Chris to say, hey, we just noticed this, can you guys check on your side as well so that we can address it together? So it's a staff would probably tell you if they were here, it's a painful monthly process, because we're talking about a couple hundred contracts at a time, and on a monthly basis, they are going through the invoice for that agency's monthly expenses down to, did staff actually work 12 hours on that project this week or not? And then reimbursing. And when something does come up that is not an eligible expense, we don't reimburse it. So we remove it from the invoice, and then the agency is not able to recoup that cost. Which, you know, we've got one agency right now who is probably gonna lose about $100,000. Not because they paid for something they shouldn't have paid for, but they didn't pay for it in the order of which it should have been paid per federal regulation, which means we can't reimburse them. So there's high stakes for the agencies to be very compliant, and then staff do a very good job catching when something does not seem to make sense and asking questions. And with the state funds in particular, the State Department of Commerce, we have a very good relationship with them, where if we're unclear on something, we're going to the state and saying, hey, we saw this come through, what would the state guidance be on how to handle this? When something does seem, it's very rare, but when that does happen, oh yeah, because we have a huge amount of risk in not catching it as well, and we want to make sure the taxpayer money is going where it should. Yeah, thank you.
Chris, when will the sort of detailed data from the point of time count be coming out?
It's a great question. It's usually
well, that's like what I got all last year.
Any day now.
At the CUC.
And I should clarify the most recent.
Yes.
Point in time.
Yes, it's out, Commissioner, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it hopefully late spring. HUD usually calls it due early May, late May. But what HUD has to open a portal. So we have to, once we have all the data back in our software system, we have to go through a deduplication process and analyzing process. HUD then opens a portal where Amanda and her team have to upload all the data. And then we go back and forth with HUD on data validation before we're able to release that data. So depending on when HUD opens the portal, last year, part of why it was so late coming out is because HUD opened the portal very late. And until HUD gives us that your data's been validated, we're not allowed to publicly share it. So typically that portal opens in May. And then it depends on how long we go back and forth with HUD. The LSA came back very quickly from HUD. So I'm hopeful that once we get that data uploaded, it won't be a super long time, but they have not announced a formal date yet for that portal to open in May.
Okay. So is that a technical gesture? Both of you go like this.
I I should have brought my pen. I thought I take a pen to council, so that I'm not doing that. But that's so hopefully it's done in May-ish, and then by June, July, we're putting it up hopefully.
And we can come back with a report on what that looks like, similar to what we've done here today with the LSA. And then also in closing, just let you all know that the city presented their city council yesterday, this LSA report. We're presenting to you all here today. And then this evening, the city will be working with the city of Spokane Valley to do the same presentation. So part of our regional effort to collaborate, make sure that all the elected officials have awareness of what's going on and make sure that we're all working together well. So yeah, really happy with the city and their partnership and how all this is working.
Yeah. Great. Thank you guys so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Justin is next up. He is in person. Okay. Okay. Commissioner Brooks.
Yes, I'm going to be switching to my phone. I see that Amber just dropped off so that we have a quorum until my appointment that I have at 11.
It looks like she dropped off, but I see her name is back. So I think she must hop back on.
Okay.
But we'd love to have you in your mobile office with us as long as you can.
Okay. I will get off this and then I'll zoom back in on my phone. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Justin Johnson.
Good morning.
Got a couple items on here, so.
Yes,
Take it
super
away.
exciting ones.
Yes.
Bear with me as I go through
All right.
compliance documents. And then if you open the way, I got Heather joining me as well. All right, so the first one, slide, is our annual training compliance documents, as well as risk assessment and review. You will have probably 14 different documents, various sizes, included in your packet. I apologize, we have to have these as part of our entirety, which covers both our counseling and recovery services and our Spokane Regional Behavioral Health Administrative Service Organization divisions. This is in alignment with both state and federal law and the contracts we have with the state. So I'll go down the list of the different documents very briefly, kind of give an overview of what those are. Those will be included in your package, so they're not listed on the slide. To kind of give you an idea of what those are. What I will say, just to start off with, are no significant changes from last year in any of the risk categories or the documents. As always, federal law and state law tends to be pretty standard over the last couple of years in terms of HIPAA and 42 CFR privacy, conflict of interest, and other requirements. As I go down through this, if there's anything, I'll note that out. So the first 4 documents will be included on your packet that cover fraud, waste, and abuse, detection, Medicare fraud, annual CSD training, and HIPAA breach and reporting. All are required by federal law for the identification of fraud, waste, and abuse, ensuring identification reporting standards, as well as meeting the Medicaid standards that the MCOs passed down on our CARES division. So those training documents are included, and they identify how we have a standard process on training our entire system and network. Just so happens it starts at the beginning of the year, so we're in the middle of that process now. The next set of 6, accountability, our healthcare responsibility, rules of conduct, conflict of interest, standards of conduct, and the conflict of interest both apply to our county policies for conduct, as well as internal departmental requirements for professional ethical responsibility, and then also state law for Department of Health responsibility for healthcare professionals. All of those are documents that our staff have to read and be trained on, and then they have to attest to that fact. There's also an individual accountability, which was a legal memo written by Attorney General's office that further highlights the importance. We also require that they are trained on that legal guidance as well. The last 6 have to do with our plan and our review. So the risk assessment for IS and risk management for IS look at our data system security, identifying if there's any vulnerabilities, and a continuity plan. These are required for anyone who maintains healthcare systems. We have identified no significant risk and no significant breaches, and we continue to ensure our network is secure and maintained as well. So thankfully, we've consistently ensured the safety and continuity of all of our records, as well as patient health information. But every year we're required to train and review. The last 2 look at our total risk as a plan, both under our Medicaid CARES division, as well as the ASO. These look at what are the risks that our department may or may not have. Have we mitigated those risks? And then how have we implemented in the last year addressing any of those risks? I am happy to say that in the last year, we've identified no significant risks and have not experienced any breach in any of these areas. As a department, there are, of course, always issues with HIPAA violations with individuals submitting documentation, PHI unencrypted, but there have been no breaches. Breaches are when information goes out to multiple individuals who should not have that information, and let's say a reply all that has not occurred, but sending information unencrypted to a recipient, even if it's the intended recipient, still technically the violation under HIPAA as well as state law. So that's something that when you submit as many documents that we do does occur. So in our risk mitigation as well as our compliance reports, again, we demonstrate and have shown this last year no significant risks, and those continue to be identified as low. So that covers the vast majority of compliance. What we would like the board to do is both acknowledge and approve our final report, identifying that we have no risk and that we have identified low to medium risk, and that the plan that we currently have in place to train, ensure that our network security is approved to move forward as it has been. Again, no significant changes overall. If something works, we like to stick with that. Does the board approve us to continue to use these plans and to move forward with the current training program that we have for our system of care? Seeing head nods and general approval all around.
Like a lot of training, a lot of safeguards. To keep
Yes.
for protection there, so.
And if you would love to read those in the 400 pages or so that we have, feel free to jump in. But the long and short of it is we have a very compliant program and one of the toughest in the state. So we stand by that pretty closely. Excellent. Thank you. The next one is bringing back something that we briefed back in October that it took a little while for us to get some feedback from staff. So just as a refresher, the board approved back in 2022, or actually 2021, before 2022, a use of a SNAP grant for weatherization and improvement. This provided improvements for the AC units on some of the facilities at the Phoenix, some of the units within the Phoenix facility. That occurred in 2022, but one of the things that staff forgot to do at the time was complete a covenant agreement, which ensured that the use of the funds per their contract was in alignment with what the state intended. Well, they kind of forgot about that. Fast forward, they notified us in October of 2025, hey, we forgot to get this signed, can you sign it? We had some concerns about that. So I went back and forth with legal here and said, a lot of the stipulations that they would have applied at the time don't apply any longer and kind of subject us to some risk. So we made substantial changes to that covenant saying we want all the risk removed during the period of time that this has been kind of in limbo. And then moving forward, we want it only to apply for the specific year that we have left. So this actually terms in June 30th, 2027. I said, for the period that we have left, it doesn't make sense to put all these other restrictions. That took them, I think, 5 months to get back to us, and they agreed to all of our conditions. So we will be putting this forward to the board to approve on the next, or whenever the next available live session is. The good news is they agreed to all of our recommended changes. So absolutely on our part, nothing else that we could have really asked for that would have provided any greater risk mitigation. So you'll see that coming forward here in the near future. Glad to finally close that door right before the actual contract act. But at least we'll be compliant. The next item we have is the Step Forward program. This is something that Preston and I brought forward to the board for the use of vanilla sales tax. And actually, Jeff as well, since he approved for us to use some of the funds there. But it really talks about the coordination between both Preston's office and community services supporting that board, the pre-filing diversion program. All of that has been worked out between our departments, and that was in our presentation. But since then, we wanted to put in writing more formally, what does that process look like? So there was an agreement. Again, this is doesn't subject us to anything or Preston's office to anything specifically outside the scope of this, nor obligate them to do anything outside of what they're legally obligated to do under the statute. But it does formalize kind of what our process would be. Of course, Preston on his side could sign that, but for us, since community services is involved, it has always been standard practice for us to put that forward to the board for signature. So Preston's in agreement on his side. I think we've nailed everything down. We did want to put this forward to the board prior to it going on ledge for your agreement, but there has been no concern between both offices on the scope of the service.
What are the eligible charges as that somebody could go into this? I assume violent offenses wouldn't be eligible. What are you kind of envisioning the most common eligible charges to be?
Well, on the felony side, that it's going to be kind of unique because that's going to be deferred to Preston's office. It really depends on the number of charges, but what we have found is anything that's non-violent but could potentially have benefits. So individuals with DUI may qualify for the program. And again, I don't want to speak outside of what Preston's office has determined.
And for a little bit more context, this is just in general and us. So, for instance, like on a DUI, there are a lot of mandatory minimums, so that's probably not going to necessarily be the realm there. But like,
if you've reached your 3 and however many years now, or so, so
the felony one, at that point, you're
to get to a felony.
By felony point, it's pretty substantial prison time, potentially. But a lot of this is kind of intended, as I understand it, for charges where person may be qualifying for like a first-time offender waiver or some of those types of with a lot of nonviolent, like property type felonies, retail theft that be raised to a felony level, not necessarily because of value, but because of the nature of the theft, like it was done with defeating an access device. Some of those matters where it is lower level on the felony side, but still technically a felony, where there's benefits to the person getting treatment, where there's either consensus from the victim, or there may be other issues with the charge, or some of those types of factors that can help indicate that an option for treatment is worth trying first before the charge, to kind of divert some of those charges to put so that more focus can be put towards violent offenses, crimes against persons, and help redirect some of the others, at least give them a chance treatment, noting that person doesn't comply with the program, doesn't follow through with it. Those charges can come back and the appropriate penalties there too.
Thank you.
And in the MOU, we defer to Preston's office to make sole discretion on what charges would apply in those unique aspects. So, all right, I don't think we've limited to what charges, except for violent charges or any significant felony where there's a history of that, are immediately disqualified, but he has discretion on. All right. Again, you'll see that coming forward in the near future.
Sounds.
Next slide. All right, so this one we are requesting a change in the contract. The board already approved our contract with NAMI in response to some changes with HR1 and the impact to our region with Medicaid coverage, we're coming back forward to the board to amend it this year to add additional funding for behavioral health awareness. Now, this will incorporate some of the work that's done in May, which is Behavioral Health Month, but it will be done throughout the year. So HR1 will be applying some new work requirements as well as other reporting requirements for maintaining eligibility of Medicaid. A lot of that information has been produced, but it's quite confusing. And some of it the state is pushing for. We recognize that our region can and is uniquely impacted. A lot of individuals receive Medicaid, but they also, because of the Eastern State Hospital leaving, their address changes quite frequently. Address is going to be one of the key components to ensuring and maintaining Medicaid coverage. And without that, we could see impact to the overall ability to provide care. They don't have insurance, then it falls on the non-Medicaid, which is currently what the county is covering. So to ensure that we maintain that federal coverage and state coverage, we are asking the board to free up some dollars that we currently have available already in our projected sales tax budget for 2026, but shifted over to provide additional funding for NAMI, just roughly under the $50,000. Now, it would not be, or I guess it's $40,000. My apologies. To add to their existing contract. It will be used for 2026 only for the purposes of making the community aware and assisting individuals in preparation so that we hopefully offset some of the potential impacts that we'll see with HR1. We found that in the last meeting with HCA, the potential impact of this could be a 20% cut across the board of individuals losing coverage, which could be very impactful to our ability to maintain existing coverage for non-Medicaid individuals. In fact, we won't be able to, not at that rate. We just do not have the funds on the county side to be able to, with the GSF and for local dollars to be able to cover that. A lot of push on this to maintain that so we don't have the influx of individuals needing coverage that can't be. Again, this won't change the already approved mental sales tax budget for our department. We were able to save a little bit of money on offsetting some of the existing costs within our overall budget. So we're just asking to shift some of that available funding over to this one. Excellent. I see head nods virtually.
Yeah.
Virtually. No days.
She's virtually nodding.
Yes.
Yeah.
No one opposed.
All right, now I've a woman of the hour here, Heather, who's resident expert on all of our opioid funds. Tell us we have loads of money. Heather, I'll let you start kind of an overview of that, and we'll jump into the specific. Okay, so Heather.
So currently we have the tracker is up to date. The tracker that we are using is based on everybody spending the annual allocation that's been awarded every year. However, some of those ongoing expenses have not been spent down. So at some point, the board's going to need to make a decision. In those situations where somebody has not spent their annual allocation, does that continue on? And do they get to just build a bank to draw from in a future year? Or does that go back to the coffer? Currently, based on everybody just spending what they get every year with no carryover, we've currently over obligated ourselves by $1.8 million. Now that does consider, that is including the project for the walk-in math OUD at the health district, which we know is not currently operating. So if we take that out, that does put us back in the positive.
Well, health districts using their own dollars to make that work. So I don't think they wouldn't need that money.
And yeah, I was going to give an update on that. We got the ILA completed with the city for that, but we never put it into place. So at that same time, the health districts had the reserve. We wanted to see if that reserve would be sufficient We just heard a report back from SRHD that they have expanded their hour to exactly what we had intended for walk-ins, 5 to 5 on weekdays, and I believe it's 9 to 2 on weekends. So it does cover that gap. And in the midst of all of that, Chemist Health has also expanded their engagement, and Multicare has expanded out same-day appointments with their either walk-in or through our STAT program. So there has been a greater increase of MOUD capacity without needing to implement this. So with the board making that choice to, the SRHD board making the choice to invest those dollars, we've seen that benefit. We don't believe that that funding is needed further at SRHD at this time, which is why we haven't moved forward. And I told the board last year, let's postpone and talk about it in the new year to see where we land. The news coming out of SRHD is good. But that ILA with the city and the city's commitment still remains. So they committed to match us. And so part of the discussion is what next then, if the city's committed to matching it and we had this idea, do we then talk about a joint venture elsewhere, or do we talk about rolling those dollars into the Christ Community Sober Center project, or just hold on the county side and reassess as we see where the money is coming in so we don't over obligate ourselves?
Well, it sounds like we are over obligated though. Do we have to pull those dollars back to make sure we're not over obligated? I mean, it's great to do a new venture, but do we have the dollars? Because it sounds like we're not, like we don't have those dollars.
Correct. Right now with those dollars in, we are over obligated by 1.8 million.
Okay, so
if we
wouldn't be able to bring them back in and push them right back out because then we're over obligated again, right?
Well, but that presumes worst case scenario. So in those funds, we've been coming under on our admin costs. So that again looks at what our total obligation would be for admin. And I think we've been coming probably lower than half that amount.
Correct. The 1.8 does include, I've corrected what we spent 24 and 25, both for admin costs and for OAC. So that is already taken out of there.
But we've looked at like 10% for total amount for admin is what we would be obligated to have to hold aside. But we have not been using 10% for admin. So that just goes back into that amount. And then for some of the projects like the STAT program, we left that in the projected cost if the board wanted to continue. But as of now, we have planned on capping that with STARS program in 2028. And so those wouldn't continue. Those costs would then not show up in the final amount. And then that also looks at some other things like with the sheriff's programs too. We have a cap date if the board wanted to shift those or move them. So those right now look at if we were to continue those till 2041, we would be over by 1.8. But the reality is we're actually using less of that amount, and there are dates that we look or anticipate to have come.
You can easily manage to it.
Yeah.
I think the moral of the story don't need to be adding to it.
Yes, that is correct.
For example, the sheriff's office, their data analyst position that we obligated in 2024. They were given 200,000 a year. To date, they've spent 191,000. So that's through the first 2 months of this year. They're at 191. So they've even spent 1 year's worth of money. Yet technically we have $600,000 sitting in a bucket for them. So if we limit it to 200,000 and say you have the option to bill 200,000 a year, or do we want to say that 200,000 rolls every year and you have a kitty right now of 600,000 you can draw from? That affects these numbers significantly.
Okay. Heather, you mentioned that if funds are not spent, that they go back into the coffer. Is that the general fund coffer or is that the grant
The
coffer?
opioid.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay.
For re-obligation to
Yeah.
a different project for.
I just got excited there for a minute.
General fund money.
Yeah, general fund, all right, yeah.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yeah, I think we need to know these things so we can have those conversations with the individuals, you know, the groups that are not spending their dollars, and if you know, to see what their intent is. I mean, I don't want to say they're limited if, you know, it took a while to get the analyst hired or put into that position. You know, I think we just need to have some conversations. I think we need to be aware and know So we can have those conversations because it is going back into opioid funds. It's not, as you just said, it's not going back into the general fund. So I just want to make sure that we're, talking about it because, I'm the one who really pushed for those dollars to be upstream. So if they're not going to get used upstream, then I want to make sure that if they go back into the coffer, they're still being used upstream because we've got to, again, put it at a level that's going to get us results in the future that are hard to, I think, articulate or show data when you're working upstream. So just like with the youth sports or the youth mental health wellness program, it's, we've got data, but it's going to be hard to show what that's really doing other than we know that it's reducing people that are in crisis. So I'd like to have those conversations with the groups that are not spending their dollars.
And find out why they're not spending dollars. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to have to jump off to get into my appointment, but I will come back as soon as I'm done.
Okay, we'll see you in a bit. To piggyback on one of the things Commissioner Keeney was when she was talking about upstream, one of the really upstream as Maddie's place. Some of these dollars are going there. They did receive something from the legislature to kind of get that sort of sustainable funding stream. Are they going to continue to need these opioid dollars? Or, does what they're now getting through the state, that funding, does that take care of the need of these opioid dollars? Or are they going to continue to need the opioid dollars as well?
So we only gave them a one-time infusion of opioid dollars.
Okay.
That was to help purchase the building. The board approved, and we've been doing this since 2003, ongoing support from the millage dollars.
That's okay.
Yeah, so they receive a portionate share of that, and that supports 20%. We've been waiting for HCA to rule on that because we can't use this to split Medicaid. We thought this session they would get that addressed, but we heard back channel is they're going to put it forward next year when they have the biennium budget and they're going to incorporate it. So at that point, the goal is for HCA to cover the full cost. We would just be covering the non-Medicaid component. But as it stands now, anything we would give them in opioid dollars would be to expand their footprint for the housing component on site. But we haven't thankfully had to dip into those to support.
Okay.
In the States, it's more of a one-time, not an ongoing.
Oh, see, I thought the state was.
That's what they were hoping for.
Yeah, okay.
That's not what they got this time.
Yes.
All right.
Well, they've been receiving it for the last 4 years, so it's been ongoing for.
It has been.
Yes, but the goal is really to get them into next year where it be incorporated in federal dollars.
Okay.
And I believe that the only ones that have not expended down the full amounts is the sheriff's department. The rest of the programs, we are expending those, the opioid dollars.
And SRHD, right?
Well, we never entered into agreement with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was something we didn't want to put forward to the board until, because the board had made the decision to halt until that whole thing with SRHD board. And now, really, we don't need to proceed. I'm recommending, but we don't proceed down with SRHD. I think they have this.
No, they don't. As far as everything I have heard as a board member on that is, they're handling it with the reserves and the income that they have through the MAP program. So yeah, I don't think they need these dollars. That's the message I'm hearing from budget over there.
Yeah, so we're putting it forward that the board would like us to proceed having a conversation because we did go into negotiate with the city for the joint partnership. They assigned dollars for our project to be with us, and they're still sitting there waiting for us to say, what do we do next then if you're not going to do the thing? So if it, as of right now, if we hold these dollars and don't spend those, in 2041, we'll have a surplus of 4.1 million, roughly, at that amount. But if we do, and we do put caps on the other funding, meaning they have a term date, we could operate within that budget to 2041 where we wouldn't be overextended. Right now, we're operating, worst case scenario, no caps. That's what we're telling the board is if you decided you didn't want to make any changes, that's what would occur. And I think there's a pathway we could, and I'm recommending some of our programs could be capped in at least 2028. Yeah, so if the board would approve us to continue the conversation with the city to say, does that look like a joint partnership with our SRSC facility? And we do because I'll show in one of our slides kind of the proposed Next stage is joint medical. It's one of the things I put forward, partnership with either WS School of Medicine or some other partner. Would it be beneficial to have a joint medical, all-encompassing campus where they could receive their medical care, their pharmacy, as well as treatment? So it's one-stop shopping. That's something that we could look to support and be joint partnership with schools as well as Providence. So something to consider. But I don't think we're in a position right now to have any idea until we meet back with the city. So if the board's okay, we'd like to continue a conversation with the city, not agreeing to anything, but beginning the next stage of what would that look like. Cool. Excellent. To finish this conversation so that I don't lose track, and then we'll jump back to the Spokane Valley ILA. I wanted to give a quick update on where the money has been spent and just reconfirm the intent for the board on the use of the funds, because a lot of things have occurred and we want to reconfirm. I got Heather and Jeff here as well. Sobering triage and transition program. In this slide, I apologize, it was not updated. We went back and forth on this. I tried to put it out in the years in which the money was spent, but then it didn't align with the years that the board approved the dollars. So in the pamphlet that the handout I gave you for the strategic implementation plan, which is in draft form, you'll see in the back that this reflects the amounts that we have in the tracker more closely. So the sobering triage transition, board approved 1.2. The time they approved it, the board approved this, we hadn't gotten information back in 2023 from Commerce for the capital investment. That occurred in 2024. So we began expending funds for the operations. And then when capital came, we did the 775. Board approved at the same time for us to continue to use out that remaining amount for ramp up. So speaking of what Heather said earlier, that then covered into the next calendar year. I just want to reconfirm to the board that the original 1.2 for STARS, that we have expended the one-time capital, but that we can continue to expend out the original amount that's remaining, which would have been 425 for the ramp up and operations, which is what we continued, but because again, it crossed over into another calendar year, we just want to reconfirm the board's approval on that going into 2025. And if we don't expend it, for 2025, and if we don't expend those out in 2026, any remaining would go, I anticipate we will, but would go into 2027. And then that will be the end, those amounts, no additional, just spend that out. Head nods? Virtual head nods?
After that description, I'm afraid to say no.
I know. I went back and forth. The previous version was much more scary. The other ones, the sobering and center capital, of course, we're still working on that with Mike and team. So we're whittling it down, and Heather actually has in one of those tabs what we've expended so far. So I will defer to your reading. I think there's 5 tabs on that. One of those tabs that shows expenditures for the crisis relief, but not all 5 million has been expended for the crisis relief and sobering study. And then we spent out the housing support for Patty's Place, and then of course the sheriff's department's 200,000, which is ongoing. Phase 2, we also discussed at the time the board approved for the crisis relief and sobering center was a 5 million one time for the capital, and then an ongoing 200,000 to support those above and beyond the non-Medicaid ones that we couldn't cover under state and federal dollars. However, because the facility hasn't opened, we've been holding that until it does. But at the time we presented, when the STARS facilities go up and running, for example, we're not using these funds, but we should be using those for existing stuff. So we'd asked the board to let us temporarily shift those $200,000 ongoing fund to support STARS until the new facility is built, and they would transfer back over to the new facility. So I want to reconfirm to the board, reconfirm with the board that the shift to the 200,000 ongoing, which was appropriated for crisis relief and sobering center, continue to use the STARS to support the cost of operating that. And then at the end of 2027, and when we shift it over, begin the process of building the services up in 2027, it'll go back to the crisis relief and sobering center and no longer be provided to STARS. I love the head nods. All right, And then, as we discussed, the opioid one is being held until further discussion. The law enforcement as well as the sheriff's department units, Heather gave an update on that. And then the STAT program, this was that joint collaboration for 400,000. The time we presented the STAT program, it was about $1.2 million cost to run that. The city was going to provide some support. The board had 400,000. We were going to do 400,000 on our side. And then we were also going to put forward the additional 200,000. So we were going to give 600,000 for a period of time, culminating on the end of 2027. And then we also make up the remaining of that dollars from sobering dollars from the federal government from our block grant. So that's where you get the 1.2. In the end of 2027, we will phase out the STAT program, fully move into the CRC. So that is where the 400,000 with the city collaboration is. I'm still working with the city to confirm that their ongoing commitment to STARS can also transition over to the stabilization center, further supporting them. And we'll have a briefing here in the next month or so to give you kind of the estimated costs we've looked at, what it is to run the facility in conjunction with the new statute for 1813, which gives the crisis service coverage. Get into it now because it's lengthy and I've already taken up enough time. Suffice to say that we do have anticipated transition and braided funding that should support the facility while also stepping away from STARS. And I hear vocalized yeses and head nods to approve.
Our challenge is we only have 2 here right now. We've lost.
That's why they're just head nods.
They're the most important 2.
Not gonna disagree with that with the 2 that are here right now.
Yeah. Well done. Well done. Smart move.
So I don't know if we need to like run this by another time, if we can have Justin talk to the others and.
Well, he's going to
Talk to the
report,
others,
he's
'cause-
going to report back, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's still work to do between now and a vote, right? So
Yes, and
he's telling us what he's going to put in draft form and bring
When
to
it
us.
comes back, we do it again.
yes, and
So
I want to be clear, the board has approved the bits and pieces over the last couple of years.
well, the bits and pieces, Jeff,
Yes.
come on, we've already done this.
Now you're getting the full story here, and that's where we want to draw a line. That is the plan. When the board sees this, they'll vote on the finalized one. It just puts in writing something we can put, make available to the public.
We do have one new settlement that has recently come in from the six regional distributors and dispensers that will be coming forward. It's only expected to bring us about 120,000. It's a pretty small group.
Total?
Yeah,
Total.
total. So not a ton of money, but
I'll close our little gap.
it'll help a little bit to close the little gap. So we just got this, Devin and I just got this and have reviewed it. So this will be ready for you guys to come forward.
And we actually have 3 more things going back. Can you pull up the slide for the Spoken Valley ILA? We are closing that gap too. That's been a year of negotiation with the Valley, of them giving some of their money to us. With the groundbreaking ceremony occurring next month, we wanted to kind of close the door on this. The Valley finally agreed to our last changes, like 7 iterations. So with that, they are going to be presenting that to their council for approval. And it culminates to about a one-time amount, about 51,000, and then an ongoing about 20,000. Really is dependent upon their awards. And again, this is just to support the crisis relief operation and services. Demonstrate that we're doing this regionally to support the work that's here. So the board will see that ILA come forward once the Valley Council has voted on it. So I do anticipate another couple of weeks before that comes back around. But again, they agree to all of our recommended changes. And then the last 2 slides are an update on, last 3 on our OAC and our STAT. The last time we met with the board, next slide, the board requested an update on the STAT program. So Jessica, one of my staff here, will provide an update on that.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Jessica Thompson. I'm a supervisor under Justice Department, and I'm also the facilitator of our Spokane Regional Opioid Abatement Council. I'm first going to begin with the update on the sobering triage and transition program. Between December 2024 and January of 2026, the program has served 1,735 individuals. 62% of those have been directly connected to next level of care, either withdrawal management or residential treatment services, which is more than half of the individuals coming into the program. This does not include individuals that have been referred to other treatment and support services such as substance use disorder treatment, medication assisted treatment, mental health treatment, and other community resources. If you add that number in, that's about 70 to 75% of individuals that are being connected to additional services following their time in the sobering triage and transition program. I also wanted to call out that in that time frame, 48 individuals received medication assisted treatment while participating in the STAT program. And that also allows them the connection to continue that service after they leave the STAT program. Next slide, please.
With this, again, it further demonstrates once we transition from the STARS to the Graduate Recovery Center, the need exists, and there's almost a direct feed from the 23-hour into the inpatient, and the success of that ensures that they're currently is happening at the hospitals after 48 hours, they just walk away. This hopefully prevents that, and the hospitals are one of the largest referral sources for the program, further reducing the strain on the ER system like we had anticipated.
Which perfectly aligns with the next slide. It's the top 3 referral sources. You go back to the previous one, please. The top 3 referral sources are hospitals, as Justin just indicated. Self-referrals is number 2, and CAR 50 is number 3. CAR 50 is a transportation program that is within the STARS program. And I think it's important to note that oftentimes that referrals are coming from law enforcement or emergency services to CAR 50, and then coming into the STAT program. And so STARS is working on collecting that data in a little bit different way to actually show where the initial referrals are coming from, to better reflect what's actually happening in our community and the strong partnership they have with our first responders. I also wanted to share a little bit of information on trends. The substances that are most often reported by individuals coming into the sobering triage and transition program are fentanyl, alcohol, and methamphetamine. Previously, STARS had reported that this was about an even split, so 33% for each of these substances. In our last couple of meetings with them in 2026, they've noted some updates to that. They have shared that they've seen a shift from that split of the 33% to meth being about 26% of all of their intakes, 16% being alcohol, and 8% being exclusively fentanyl, but with the majority being about 48% been polysubstance use, and that's methamphetamine and fentanyl together that is being reported within their the program. Any questions on the sobering triage and transition update before I move to an update on our opioid abatement council?
Nope.
Wonderful. So the opioid abatement council continues to meet every other month to report out on how funds are being utilized, collaborate, and share resources and information. We also currently continue to receive annual expenditure reports. The 2025 annual expenditure reports are coming in from each participating local government currently and are being reported on our website. We are also looking at working to create a dashboard. We're going to continue to receive the annual expenditure reports, but we also are working to create a regional opioid dashboard to provide information to the community in a more consumable way. The dashboard will include, as you can see on the map, mock-up, it will include the amount of allocated funds by participating local government, and the percentage of the funds within our region that are going to approved use within the One Washington MOU. Again, this is just a draft and mock-up of what that could look like, but I thought it would be beneficial to provide information in a more consumable way to the public. Again, the more detailed reports, the annual expenditure reports that each of the participating local governments submits has additional detailed information on what those projects are. And So we're excited to begin working on this, and this will be posted on our opioid abatement council website once we get all the information and have it all ready to go, which we're very excited about.
If you haven't seen it, it's an exciting website. Check it out.
And then with that, I think that's the update that I have on the opioid abatement council, unless there's any questions.
We're good.
Thank you
And
very much.
Jeff, the Skrills agenda, we need to have that approved, but we need a forum. I don't know if you want to present that later or.
Yeah, it's actually the very next item, under miscellaneous.
The board's lost a quorum, so
I
we
know.
can't take any official action.
May just be stuck with a draft agenda that you're using.
Okay. Excellent. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not on the 2 o'clock. Usually it's thrown
out
out
there. I know there's been debate on whether.
I don't think it is
Just
because
saying.
as I read this has Justin Johnson's letterhead, not BOCC letterhead. This isn't a meeting called by us, which was the intent, and I believe actually the way that resolution is written, that it's meetings called by the board have a majority, kind of regional meetings called by the Board of County Commissioners are to have us approve agendas. This isn't a meeting called by, and we've debated this back and forth. That was the intent of it, and I think as you read the resolution, that's what it actually says too, but I don't think we have to approve these, but the Skrills will go on.
Skrills will go on.
Yes. So,
Not an approved agenda.
all right, that's all good.
So are we gonna do miscellaneous this morning or?
We're on it right now.
Okay.
Martha Lou's gonna get media updates and
I'm sure that you heard the good news from Scraps that early last week, they took possession of 37 surrendered dogs. It was kind of a situation where the homeowner had to admit that they had too many animals to properly care for. And so Scraps took them in, gave them an initial assessment. They were in very good shape, which was a relief. 16 of those animals went to Spokanimal, which is a partner shelter. And so Ronnie and I worked together and they had an adoption day. The puppies and the dogs had all been spayed, neutered, and recovered. All of them were adopted within 5 hours. And so we received some very positive coverage for Scraps, which I think is absolutely wonderful. And I just have to say, Ronnie is doing an outstanding job as the new director at Scraps. Newsletter is coming out this week. Also, I am receiving RSVPs for the PATH groundbreaking. I've heard from Senator Murray's office. She will not be here, but her office manager will be. Right now, we have approximately 40 RSVPs for the event. Camas Meadow is coming up May 21st. Plans Ferry, April 29th for your ribbon cuttings. We need to work on the time for Plants Ferry. I sent you some emails, Commissioner Kearns. So if you and Ron can get together on that and let me know.
you were saying 1 o'clock.
Mhm.
I replied back, said it works for me. So
Wonderful, thank
works
you.
for everyone else, then I think we're good to go.
And also, I need to schedule your spotlight, Commissioner.
We're locking down guests.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Emergency management is offering some training. Charissa and I will be taking part in that Thursday and Friday as much as possible. Of course, we're available to you at any time. So that concludes my report. Anything for me?
I think we're good.
All right, thank you very much.
Ashley has been finalizing the code enforcement position. We just want to get some feedback today on.
So this position is one that and we talked about a while ago, but we didn't kind of nail down. So we had talked about it in a high level context. And so before Scott Simmons left, he had pulled some things together and sent them my way just to give me a basic understanding of what this position might look like. And then I went out and looked at some other class specs across other entities. And this is the draft class spec that I have put together. And so I am just handing it out for people's review. And if there's any big changes that need to happen, to let me know. Once I have the dialogue within the class spec finalized, I can then go out and grade it, and then we can get it posted. I believe where we landed last time the board talked about this was that the position would most likely make sense to report through the building department. And so I have that listed there. The general purpose of this is to perform professional field and administrative work to prevent, detect, and enforce violations of the Spokane County Code, especially nuisances defined in chapter 613 and related occurrences governing public nuisance, property maintenance, land use, and right-of-way obstruction, junk vehicles, and similar regulations. They would be responsible for complaints and inquiries, conducting on-site inspections, documenting violations, advising responsible parties of corrective actions, pursuing civil and administrative remedies, and preparing cases for hearings in court. The work would involve regular public contact, including difficult or hostile situations, and is performed under the general direction of building and code enforcement leadership. So that's the general purpose. And then I kind of broke it down into some more specific tasks. Based on the other class specs that I found at other counties, cities, entities that had a similar position, I'm recommending the title of assistant building official, but that is flexible if somebody wanted to change it. Additionally, the minimum qualifications based on what I found out on like positions were 2 years of experience involving direct public contact, inspection, or investigation work, regulatory enforcement, and similar responsibilities. 2 years of college in planning, engineering, architecture, and public administration, and then a valid driver's license, ability to obtain an American Association of Code Enforcement certification, and then additionally property maintenance and housing inspector and zoning enforcement officer within 1 year of employment if they don't already have it, or an equivalent combination of experience and training. So that's how I pulled this all together. If you guys want to look over it and get back to me, or if you feel comfortable with where it's at, I can go get the grading done on it. But I wanted to make sure everybody had eyes on this before I went out and took the time to go look at what the salary was going to be.
Would you mind sending me an electronic copy of this?
Absolutely.
I could take my comments.
Yep.
Same request.
Yep.
I mean, nothing jumps out at me right now, what you went through, but yeah, we'll let some other folks go through it with a fine tooth comb. Was wondering, where are we at as far as comms director?
That was my next topic.
Oh, great.
So we have been interviewing, we have one more candidate that will be interviewing this week before we feel comfortable making a recommendation for who we would move forward to that next round of interviews. So likely not next week, but the following week, I would like to put some additional time, either on the back half of a Monday or at some point on a Tuesday for the interviews like you guys have done in advance. I will send around the questions to all of you that we used last time, the bank, and then you guys can tweak them if you want to. And then in a executive session, once we have those two candidates, or 2 or 3, however many we think we're gonna roll, we have those candidates, we could discuss that under the qualifications and have further conversation on who they are.
For those board interviews, can you do that after April 1st? Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Any other miscellaneous items?
Yes, I know.
Mr. French.
So, I've been working extensively with Avista with regard to data centers, and obviously I've got a major project on the West Plains, and I believe that there's also a project on the north side potential. Avista has been working very aggressively to get themselves in a position to where they can accommodate this without impacting our ratepayers. And so they wanted to come in and educate the board as to what they are doing to try and gear themselves up, both from an infrastructure standpoint and from a revenue standpoint, to be able to accommodate this new interest, but also to protect the ratepayers and stuff. So I was wanting to put this on the radar, and whether they figure it's probably going to take about a half hour to go through and update what they were doing, be able to respond to questions, and we're hoping to do it sometime in the month of April. So I'm reaching out to Inland to find out whether they want to participate at the same time or do a separate thing, but yeah. So it's on your radar now.
All right. Any other miscellaneous items? No? I don't know how you want to handle it.
So
Executive
Mary's back.
Oh, perfect for executive session.
We got a quorum, yay.
Let's do it.
All right.
Before you adjourn, can we move to approve the Shrills agenda?
Oh, Mary, we good on the Skrills agenda? Do I need to open that up? So, I mean, what
Are there anyone opposed to the
No.
Skrills agenda?
No.
No.
Hearing none.
That's,
Okay.
all right, that's
I'll let
the,
Justin know it was officially blessed.
that's the attorney. Okay.
Dominate.
Okay. So executive session?
We have about, we have 4 executive sessions today, 55 minutes.
No, we're gonna
Do we
get through
have to
it.
stop at noon, or can we go through till 12:30? You have time for that?
We'll get through it.
We will need to maintain a quorum if we're gonna be in executive
With
session.
those 3, we're gonna get through it.
We're gonna get through it. The first one,
I will stay, I'll be able to stay on. I'll probably be here switching and driving back to the office, but I'm on my phone now, so it
Perfect.
I think I heard will be able to
Yep.
stay on. First is pending and potential litigation, 15 minutes, no action. Matt Folsom, Jeff McMorris, Devin Curta, Tessa Sheldon, Vicky Dalton, Tim Donovan, Ashley Cloud, Dan Gadd. The second pending and potential litigation, again, no action. Jeff McMorris, Folsom, Devin Curta, Megan Clark, Jasper Coulter, Matt Zeracor, Brandy Collier, Jake Saxon, Scott Dickinson, Scott Suave. Then
Ashley, we're not gonna do the comps until the final. Yeah.
strike that one. Okay, so we only have 3 and we're down to 45. Yeah. The final one is pending and potential litigation. No action is anticipated. Jeff McMorris, Matt Folsom, Devin Curta, Kyle Tuig, and Ben Radabo if he's available. So it is 11:25. 45 minutes of executive session will take us to 12:10. There was no action anticipated, so I'd recommend we adjourn.
Okay, well, Matt just listed off the purpose and times for the executive session. As stated, it's 11:25. At the conclusion of those executive sessions, we will adjourn until our 2 o'clock legislative meeting. And thank you all for joining us this morning.